Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Hello, everybody, and a very pleasant good morning to you wherever you may be. Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson coming to you live and in living color from the Ultralux Essential Pest Control Studio. Thanks for joining us today. We have another action-packed show for you with a decidedly Western flavor to our guests. Yep.
Hey, in just a few minutes, we're going to be connecting with author Dane Huckelbridge about his new book, Belle Starr, The Queen of Mayhem. We love to talk about the Old West here on Inside Track because we respect our Western heritage, being from Southern Arizona. In the second half of the show, our friend of the show, State Senator from District 17, Vince Leach, is going to talk about the mostly peaceful protest in Los Angeles and elsewhere across the country, as well as the riotous behavior of Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs and the current legislative session as we get close to a budget agreement, hopefully. Bruce and I hope that you'll support our sponsors who help us pay the man, my broadcast company, or my company, Wilkinson Wealth Management, our friends Eric Rudin at Essential Pest, Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and Bruce's three-generation company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. When you call them, please let them know you found us on Inside Track.
Hey, be prepared for a few errors in my note writing.
Shocked to find there's gambling.
More than before. So I hadn't really been able to do my final on the notes for today, and I woke up at 3:45. So you're seeing some of the work at about 4:05 in the morning.
That's why they invented coffee, Bruce.
I had already by that time had a big slug of coffee. To talk with us or our guest today, call 520-771-5101 or send a message to us live on the Live the Dream Media Facebook account. Eb and I are pleased to introduce a new guest Inside Track. Dane Huckelbridge is a newcomer here at Inside Track, but he's no stranger in the literary world. He's written three previous diverse books: United States of Beer, A History of American Spirit, Bourbon,
God bless him,
and a novel, Castle of Honor, and No Beast So Fierce. His latest book is about Belle Starr, who we'll find out about in just a moment. Thanks for joining us this morning, Dane. How are you? Shay, we got Dane there? There we go. I can't hear Dane.
Pump up the volume.
Hang on there. Dane, we're trying to get you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you okay.
All right.
Oh, good.
We're
here.
Thanks for joining us today.
Sorry, brief technical difficulty.
It's our East German. Don't worry.
So where are we speaking with you? We're in Tucson, Arizona. Where are you today?
I'm in Paris, France. I live in Paris, so I'm right in front of Gare du Nord on a beautiful sunny late afternoon here in Paris. So
how lovely. Boy, that's great. It'll be about 104 here today, maybe 105. Not too much humidity at all. I can fry an egg on the sidewalk. Glad somebody's in a good place.
Yeah, it's nice here, a little cooler. You can sit outside at a cafe and have a nice cold drink. It's a perfect temperature.
We do the same about 10 o'clock at night.
Dane, when you're sitting in a cafe outside on a nice cool evening in Paris, what's a glass of wine cost?
I would say very cheap end would be €5. Probably more expensive would be €10. So between, I'd say average probably 6 or 7, maybe 7 or 8.
So that's
6
not
or 7.
bad.
No, it's not too bad. It's much cheaper than when I lived in New York. That's for sure. Okay. So yeah, you can. It's reasonable, I think. If you know the right places, you can get it even cheaper. So it pays to know your way around town, I guess.
Yeah. So Dane, books on booze, water, fierce tigers, and now a tough criminal broad. I can say that on podcasts. Couldn't say that, on broadcast radio.
You couldn't say broad on broadcast radio?
Nah, there's too many people who might think that's a bad thing for a guy to say about a woman. But a tough criminal broad who lived hard and died hard. What's your background, and how did you come to write about one of the best and or most celebrated females of Western lore?
Sure. Well, I've had this long time interest in history and in writing historical books, and you listed off a few of the other ones.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for a good subject, and I guess I've been lucky in that the subjects always just kind of pop up, like usually when I least expect them. That was how the book on bourbon whiskey. I was sitting with my agent in his backyard drinking bourbon as we like to do, and you know, enjoying the afternoon, and I was kind of brainstorming ideas for a book. I didn't have any good ones, and he kind of just said, "Hey, why don't you write one about bourbon? We drink enough of this stuff back here," kind of as a joke. And then we both realized it was a good idea. That's how that came about. Yeah, tigers, the tiger one. I had this kind of interest in man-eating animals, man-eaters, apex predators, and I thought that could be cool. And I'd sort of, briefly discussed the idea in a broad sense with my editor at the time, and then one day he stumbled on an article about the Champawat tiger, which is this the deadliest man-eater in history. It ate over 400 people, and he remembered this interest I had in apex predators and man-eaters, and brought it up and said, "Hey, maybe this would make a good book." And Belle Starr came about kind of in a similar fashion. How that happened was I was having a chat again with my editor, like sharing some ideas, most of which didn't seem quite right. And I was just asking, what are people looking for these days? What sells well? What's good? And you mentioned books set in America and books about crime. And just very casually, I mentioned, because I think it had come up in conversation with another friend, that when I was young, my mom had always said that we were distantly related to Belle Starr through her Texas side. Which that's, as to whether or not that's true, there's some ambiguity. I talk about this quite a bit in the book. So
claim it if you can. Claim it if you
can.
Well,
it's sort of ambiguous. It's not in some ways yes, and in some ways no, and in some ways maybe. So I'll leave it at that because it's in the book. But that's how this conversation got started, and and instantly, like, a light bulb went on rather. And he said, "Oh, could you write me a little page about that?" And I did, and he loved, her life story. He thought was interesting, and he said, "Could you do a book about it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And lucky for me, her true life story, I think, turned out to be even more kind of action packed and dramatic than I expected. I really learned a lot, and it really is a wild story set in the Wild West, and a true story at that. So it was a lot of fun to write.
So she has been written about by others, but she has been portrayed in movies really since about the time Talkies came out, and played by from Lindsay Wagner, I think, to Pamela Mead, to just all kinds of different women. Most of them look more beautiful than the pictures that I've seen of her.
Yeah, and
your book.
I think, yeah. I mean, when she was young, I think she was considered, attractive to a certain extent. I think she had her fair of suitors and whatnot. But when you look at the pictures of her later in life, she died just, it was, middle age, just hitting her 40s was when she got shot. So she's not that old. And when you look at pictures of her, you get the sense that she was doing some hard living, like probably was no stranger to the whiskey bottle and sleeping outside and kind of harsh conditions. And she definitely looks kind of plains worn and haggard in her later pictures. So I think the lifestyle did catch up with her. But I think when she was young, teenage, early 20s, I think she was considered something of an attractive, attractive.
Did you ever date anybody that looked like Belle Starr?
Thank God, no.
Anybody as tough as Belle Starr?
No. Once again, no. Belle Starr. So here's a gal, convicted horse thief. And Dane writes, a nation should be wary of glorifying its criminals. Wanton violence and Machiavellian greed are hardly traits to celebrate, regardless of how alluring they can sometimes appear with the cleansing distance of hindsight. Recognizing a country's trailblazers, on the other hand, that's Belle Starr. That is a worthy exercise. And in her transcendence of the patriarchal structures of the 19th century American life, and in her rise to a position of influence and power at the time when American women were unequivocally denied both, Belle Starr blazed an impressive trail indeed. And so to your point, Bruce, these women back in that 19th century, they had to be tough. They could not just be these pretty little wallflower things that you would put up on a shelf and admire. They had to be tough. And with that toughness comes the leathered skin, the whiskey drinking, the scars, the tough life. And, understand back then, water wasn't always great. And so to help sterilize the water, that's where the whiskey came in.
Dane, your thoughts there?
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things I explore in the book that I think makes her story so compelling is that, many times these outlaws, they came from pretty rough circumstances. And that's why they don't have a lot of means at their disposal to acquire wealth, to do this and that. So they go into crime, they become gangsters, outlaws, whatever. She actually came from a fairly prosperous family and was the recipient of a fairly good education. She didn't have to go into this outlaw, this rough and tumble, violent, extremely violent, when you read the book, outlaw life. And I think that's why she did it, was because at that time, the level of freedom she aspired to do whatever she wanted, to go where she wanted, to pursue her own trade, to love who she wanted, it wasn't really available to her as a woman legally, but illegally, she could do whatever she wanted. And that's what I think which made this sort of the outlaw way so appealing to her. And she totally embraced it. And she did live this very wild, spirited, pretty adventurous life. And she did get a lot of freedom, but she also made a lot of enemies. And at the end, the book starts with her getting blasted off her horse with a shotgun from behind, and then getting essentially executed point blank range, gangland style. So she, sort of live by the gun, die by the gun is definitely true in her case.
So your story sort of goes from front to back, or from back to front, rather than...
It does, yeah. It starts that the very opening of the book is her as like already sort of an accomplished, semi-retired outlaw riding off from this meeting of friends back toward her little hideout ranch, and isn't expecting anything bad to happen, and gets one barrel of buckshot from behind and another, like I said, at point blank range, kind of to execute her. And to this day, they still don't know who killed her. Like it's never been established. There are a number of candidates, some more likely than others, and it makes for a great murder mystery. And that's sort of the end of the book when I circle back and get back up to the scene when she's killed. That's the entree to this great murder mystery: who killed Belle Starr? And you start looking at the different suspects, different people who might have had motivations, and yeah, it's a great story. It's in my opinion, one of the great murder mysteries in American history.
This could be a limited series on Prime or Netflix.
I think, yeah, sure.
And you can make up whoever the heck you wanted as the perpetrator, because nobody really knows, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's at least 4 or 5 candidates. It's also possible it was none of the suspects that are currently considered, potential killers, but there's probably 4 or 5 who could have done it. There was one, not to give too much away, but again, they don't know who did it. She had the sharecropper who was working for her by the name of Watson, and apparently they'd been in some kind of dispute. And there was a lot of suspicion was pointed towards him after that, because of this the sort of tenant dispute they'd had. But he was clear to the crime. There was, they had some witnesses kind of testify saying that they were with him right around or right before when it happened, and he couldn't have done it. And also the story as to why he killed her didn't make a lot of sense, because the story went that he was actually himself sort of a criminal in hiding. He was from Florida, and he'd gone out to what was then called the Indian Territories, modern day Oklahoma, to hide out kind of and work. He was fleeing from the law and worked as a sharecropper. And when she found out that he was an outlaw and this land dispute came up, she basically said, listen, you need to clear off my land, or I'm going to, tell the authorities that you're an outlaw in hiding. And the story goes that he was to kind of silence her, he killed her. The only problem with this, though, is it just doesn't make a lot of sense. If he wanted to not attract attention from the authorities,
he would
the worst thing he could have done is killed this well-known outlaw in broad daylight right in front of his, very close to his home.
Well, but to that end, Edgar Watson was not just an escaped convict. He was a convicted murderer who left.
Well, there's a number of stories about that. I think and again, some of them are hard to confirm. The story is that he fled he fled Florida after a murder charge. And there's also a story, and again, these are tricky to confirm, that later in life there was another man by the name of Watson, and there's been stories about this, who went back to Florida, became a local, I believe, cane farmer, and eventually killed some people as well, or something to that effect, and was a posse of local townspeople murdered him. So there's a lot of that's hard. I mean, it's hard to substantiate as to what exactly was going on, because the Everglades at that time was a bit like the Wild West as well. But there is reasons to think that it could have been him, and but there's also reasons to think it may not have been. That, like I said, the story didn't hold up, and he did apparently have witnesses at his trial who were, and it's possible they were lying. That's certainly possible, but said they were with him either at the time of the shooting or, just prior to the shooting, and that he couldn't have done it. And so that's why he was cleared. So he's one candidate. There's some people think her husband at the time might have killed her to try to get his hands on this ranch, that they were sharing.
Now,
and that's a possibility as well. But, yep.
Okay. So,
yeah, so that
one of the things I found interesting, they married in what, 1880? She had apparently been married before, kind of, sort of, maybe,
twice, I think.
but she married Sam Bell in 1880, and basically, my understanding is that's when they perfected the craft of horse thieving and everything else. And Sam, a Cherokee Indian, apparently specialized in this, and they were doing great until 1882, when they were convicted of horse thieving.
Yeah, exactly. And so to get to the Sam Starr part of the story, which is a great part, she'd previously been married to this outlaw named Jim Reed. And to make a long story short, he was kind of a bit of a ne'er-do-well and not, kind of I'll use the word screw up as a criminal, a bit hapless, and they had this big score. He blew all the money, ran on, gambling and whiskey and brothels and whatnot, ended up running off with a mistress, and he ended up getting himself killed by a bounty hunter. And that's a great story too. The story in the book about this bounty hunter kind of tricks him and kills him is straight out of Hollywood. So then after her first husband was killed, she had this period where she kind of wandered around a bit, was a bit lost, whatever, remarried briefly to this other kind of, probably not so great candidate, this kind of gambler, possibly an outlaw by the name of Bruce Younger. That marriage lasted a couple weeks, I think,
Yeah.
and then they split up, or he ran off. It was kind of a mess.
He was Cole Younger's younger brother?
I think it was some form of uncle. I don't remember off the top of my head. It was something. He was older, I think, like some kind of uncle. And at that point, I think she just got fed up with these, the sort of outlaw life of being treated as a sidekick, as a woman, and kind of being mistreated by these kind of, feckless, drunkard Western outlaws. And she went straight to the Cherokee Nation, where she'd had dealings before through her husband, criminal dealings. And she married Sam Starr and married directly into this very powerful Cherokee family called the Stars, the branch of which was led by Tom Starr, who is kind of this legendary and kind of scandalous but legendary figure, depending on who you ask, in Cherokee history. And, you could make the argument, at one point he was definitely a political rebel and kind of a warlord, but you could make the argument that he was essentially the head of a Cherokee mafia of sorts. And she married into this family, and her and Sam Starr kind of got their own criminal enterprise going. And they essentially ran a ring of, they're horse thieves, probably whiskey smuggling, armed robbery, organized crimes, classic kind of what you think of as mafia stuff.
So, Eb, there in Wikipedia, there's some pictures of Belle riding a horse, side saddle. And I guess from time to time, Dane, she probably had to escape either people of the law or people who were other bad guys. When she rode and had to get out of a place in a hurry or get to a place in a hurry, was she riding side saddle? Do we know?
That's a great question. I think she was. I mean, it is possible that sometimes she didn't, but the issue was she was known for wearing these long flowing dresses, and that was kind of the reason. There's a couple reasons to use a side saddle, but that was one of the main ones. Was it was considered kind of vulgar and usually involved wearing, breeches, wearing pants to sit astride a horse, and with a long dress, that ladies wore at the time was hard. So she wore these long black dresses, and I think she'd also, one of the ironies, she was this really rough and tumble, rugged, whiskey drinking character, but she also preserved certain, glamorous, ladylike affectations from her youth, being raised by her mother, who was something of a Southern belle, and being, taught to be a respectable young lady. So she did preserve these. She wore these elaborately plumed, feathered hats, wore long black dresses with silk scarves and things like that. And I think that's why she rode side saddle, because it was considered ladylike, and also just to accommodate the long dresses. And although there are instances, and these are hard to prove, but I believe they're true, there are witnesses who claim she did dress as a man to do stick-ups, to do armed robberies as part of her disguise, and in which case she would have been wearing pants, and I'm pretty sure she would have worn, ridden her horse standard saddle, not side saddle. So I think she probably could do both, but in most instances, I think she would, unless she was doing a stick-up disguised as a man, she was riding side saddle.
So the point you make about her being associated with a bunch of men who were basically screw-ups and miscreants and so on.
Yeah.
In some respects, she's a very liberated female. Is she sort of a figure that in some respects does represent liberated or emancipated females in the 19th century? Can that argument be made? Or is that a little...
I think you could definitely make that argument. And I think the real turning point was when she left kind of, I'll say male-dominated Anglo society behind and went to the Cherokee Nation, which did have more of a history of having women, of having women leaders, women warriors, property and clan membership and custody of children always went through the matrilineal line. And I think there she kind of blossomed in a way and achieved a position of kind of status and respect and power that I think would have been much harder in the sort of the Anglo world she left behind. And in that regard, yeah, I think you can make that case. She liberated herself. Yeah.
Yeah, she went into the Cherokee Nation, and basically what you're saying is she blossomed into this gang lord leader.
Yeah, I think you could definitely say that. And she did, and she arrived with some useful skills, which made her appealing as well. One of which, she knew a lot about horses. She was a huge aficionado of horses, and she grew up essentially on a stud farm, on a livestock farm, with her father who bred horses. So she was, this was a useful skill in the Cherokee Nation to have, where a big, for the Starr family and some of these other family, a big part of their business was fencing horses, and it was important to do that to be able to judge the quality of horse flesh. So she was useful in that regard, her experience with horses. And also she had this, I use the term kind of Wild West Rolodex of connections to outlaws. And these are mostly through her first husband, Jim Reed, and many of his friends. She came from this whole milieu originally in Missouri of Confederate guerrillas. And this included, the Youngers, Cole Younger and his brothers. This included Frank and Jesse James. This included many others beyond that. And beyond sort of fencing horses, another big racket at the time, and she came to do this, and the Starr family was known for doing this, was offering sort of a hiding place, sort of protection, sort of a protection racket, but really offering a hideout.
Safe house.
Yeah, exactly, a safe house to criminals who are on the run, and you would obviously get paid for that. And Belle Starr brought in, I think, a lot of business in that regard. And one of her very first guests, again, it's one of the things that's difficult to prove, but it seems to be true, was Jesse James right after, I believe, the Blue Cut robbery, big train robbery. So, yeah, she had things that did make her appealing. And there were probably skills that did go underappreciated back when she was in Texas or whatever. But in Indian territory, they didn't really care so much, I think, that she was a woman, and they let her, it was more of a meritocracy. She was good at what she was doing and had a useful skill set, and she was able to rise in the ranks, I believe.
By the way, Bart Starr, any relation at all?
That I don't know. I mean, off the top of my head, I really don't know.
Ringo Starr?
I don't think you can go that far.
you got me. I couldn't even. I had trouble even proving my own family connection to Belle Starr. So those I'm not aware. I know that the Starr family. I believe Starr. I think it was either like an English or a Scots-Irish name that came, because these Cherokee families, they intermarried quite a bit with traders back when they were in Appalachia back east. Particularly many of the prominent families, the kind of the in leadership roles, they intermarried with many of the Scots-Irish and English traders who had come and trade for buckskins and other things like that. And so many of them were, it was like a surprisingly multicultural society. I mean, it was the Cherokee Nation, but many of them did come from mixed Cherokee and European, and in many cases, Black ancestry as well. So it was a very racially and culturally dynamic world she was entering into.
So the founder of this show, Abel Franzi, talked often about Scots-Irish being really the reason that the United States became the United States. A certain independence, a certain fighter, warfare kind of a culture, and so on. Interesting that Belle Starr kind of fell in that area. Talk about this fellow bushwhacker, or this fellow who was part of the Confederate bushwhackers, who she was associated with for a while. Are you familiar with that? Was that in the book?
Well, would that be her brother Bud? Because that's one of the interesting parts of her story.
Yeah.
Is sort of her first taste of adventure, so to speak, was during the Civil War, when she was a girl. She was a young teenager. Her brother Bud was a little bit older than her and served as a Confederate guerrilla. They were hiding out in the woods, ambushing Union patrols and Union militias, things like that. And she actually served as, I guess you could say, kind of a Confederate spy, passing on intel and doing reconnaissance missions, because as a 14-year-old girl or whatever she was, she could, they wouldn't harass her. A young man at that time, a local man who wasn't serving in any army was at risk of getting pulled over, beaten up, and possibly killed, just out of suspicion of being an insurgent, being a guerrilla. Because she was a girl, she had a little bit more freedom of movement, and she used that to pass on intel and reconnaissance info to her brother during the sort of bushwhacker campaign during the Civil War. So that, I really think that was her first taste of gunfights, of violence, or first proximity to those kind of things. And you might think something like that would scare someone away from it, but with her, I think she's one of those unique individuals that just kind of whet her appetite, and she gave in to kind of a lifetime of adventure and violence even.
Dane, thanks for coming on the show today. The queen of all mayhem, Belle Starr. This is a great book. I want to read this right. Belle Starr, Queen of All Mayhem, The Blood-Soaked Life and Mystery Death of Belle Starr, the most dangerous woman of the West. Thanks for joining us today. And hey, insiders, if you're interested in the Old West like we are here at Inside Track, fascinating history about our Western heritage, Belle Starr. Book, I'm sure, Dane, is available on Amazon and fine bookstores everywhere.
Yep. You can find it in Amazon, local bookstores. You can also go to the HarperCollins site. All those work.
Right on. So, Dane, thanks very much. Best of luck with the book. Appreciate you being on the show. Maybe come back in the future. I'd love to hear about your beer book as well.
Hear about the bourbon book.
Well, I'm a light drinker. He's a heavier drinker than me. Let's go ahead and
do a double header. Cover both of them. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Before we break, favorite bourbon?
Ooh, Blanton's. I think I like Blanton's.
God bless you.
All right, let's take a quick break to hear from our great sponsors. No channel flipping. We'll be right back.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
All right, welcome back to Inside Track with our special guest, LD17 State Senator Vince Leach. We're talking Katie Hobbs and sausage making at the Capitol and insurrections being put down, Donald in charge. And by the way, this portion of the show was brought to you by our friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest. You can count on the Essential Pros to protect your home, office, or business. Eb?
How are you, Bruce?
I'm great. Okay, so Vince, we were talking about a Western dame who was a thief and a crook and a menace to society,
Who rose through the ranks.
and you deal with a bunch of people who are a menace to society.
That
What-
rose through the ranks?
Exactly.
What's going on?
it's-
There's some crazy things that the governor's been up to.
Yeah, we're on recess. Pardon me. We're on recess right now. That'll be ending on Monday, I'm told. The House is back in. But yeah, the last 2 weeks have been just a lot of stuff coming down and a lot of things happening. The budget is. We can talk about the detail. Well, we can't talk about the details because even though we're told we're going to have a budget in 10 to 14 days, I've not seen $1 on a spreadsheet as to what we're spending money on.
So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So today is June 11th.
Yep.
You guys have to produce a budget by June 30th.
Yep.
Correct? And you're one of, you may not have a title in leadership at this moment. You are certainly one of the veterans and one of the, more respected colleagues in that body. You haven't seen a budget?
I have not seen a budget. I've not seen.
How do you run a railroad that way? Much less a
well,
state.
you don't. You ever seen that cartoon? It had Obama's with the two locomotives. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what you have. What we have right now is the House came back in. They were supposed to come back in on Monday the 6th. I believe that's the 16th. They were supposed to come in the same time that we would come back in, hopefully work on a budget together, because I'm told, members are told, that the budget framework is basically there. Well, the House decided to come in today. They're coming in at 1:15 today. They're going to introduce a budget, and they're going to hear that budget in committee tomorrow, and they're going to vote it at 2. You got to have 3 days to get a bill through. That's in the Constitution, and they're going to vote it at 2 a.m. on Friday morning. Don't know what's in it.
Why do legislative bodies do these things, have these votes in the middle of not middle of night, but in the early morning hours?
Well, I've been asked that question many times because I've been on the other side.
Yeah.
You don't like it, but you move a bill when you have the votes. And particularly with the budget is so fluid, and members want this, want that, and then something moves. It's like 52 pickup sticks, and something moves, and somebody comes off of it. So you get 16 members in the Senate, you get 31 members in the House. You go, and unfortunately for the public, is many times that's in the middle of the night when people are tired, exhausted, and just want to go home.
So when do the discussions with the governor start?
I'm told that the governor has been meeting with the Senate. I'm also told that she has not been meeting with the House. I don't know I don't know what I don't know. I know we were told that 2 weeks ago that remember, we've talked about the Oprah budget. Everybody got X number of dollars.
Yeah.
All right. We were told, members of the Senate were told, everybody's getting $5 million.
Again, they're doing that?
Yeah, and we couldn't. We took a hand count vote in a caucus, Republican caucus, in a meeting, and do we want to do the old style budget of negotiating out and put some priorities, or do we want to do what I call the Oprah budget and just divide up the money and go that way? 5 people voted for the old style. The rest of the members, which would be which would be 12, voted for the Oprah style budget. We were in a meeting less than a month ago where we said, why don't we? Once we knew what not a shortfall, but there wasn't that much money to begin with, why don't we just take that money and put it in the sock? We don't know what the feds are going to do with Medicaid and a bunch of other things. Why don't we just put that in the sock? You would have thought that I was in the wrong meeting. There were about 3 Republicans that were forward, and the rest of them said, no. I got to have this. I got to have this. I got to have this.
It's a failure. This whole thing smells as a failure of leadership to do what is right in governing the state.
You said that, I didn't, but I'm disappointed. And I campaigned against the Oprah style budget. You may remember that.
I do.
I campaigned against it the whole time that I was running, and they justified it as a members budget. It is a members budget, but it doesn't take anything. For example, we're about 2,000, 2,500, maybe 3,000 state troopers short. This budget, when you divide the money up that way, you can't get enough money to help out pay. They want 15%. We may end up giving them 5%. We're going to lose people. I was told earlier this week that
I think a state trooper was just killed earlier this week.
That's correct.
Yeah. I was told that there's about 800 people in corrections that are just waiting to see what the pay increase. They're in the retirement. They're in position for retirement, and if something big doesn't come through, they'll be out the door. And you can't.
So they're trying to make this easy. Okay, it's like everybody gets a participation medal.
We don't have to negotiate.
But then you end up getting screwed by the other side because they're still going to try to get over on us with respect to other spending. Some of it we probably don't like.
I would give you if I was leading, I would give, which is easier. Give you 10 million, give you 10 million, make you happy, and say, "Are you on the budget?" And you're going to be like a dog in the back window. People on video
in
maybe
view
can't
of
see
everything
this.
going on right now on a federal level, it's even this thing is even worse, knowing that free money's being given out. Well, free money, it's money that you
it's your
give,
money.
I give, Eb gives, Shay in the other room,
And
Clint, and David.
you don't give it. I remind constituents we take it, and they say, "Well, no, we give it." No, just don't pay your taxes sometime.
Yeah, well,
and,
good
and
luck
guess,
with that.
And guess what happens? Where somebody's knocking on your
Right.
door. The Senate, are going in Monday, and so hopefully we'll find out what's going on. We'll see the House budget sometime today. They'll be introducing it, so we'll know the details of it and where they're spending. I haven't seen what, we have to, by law, we have to budget for 3 years to make sure our budget is balanced for 3 years. I haven't seen what the ending balances are going to be for each year, which is important because you don't want to go in as happened a couple of years ago. They didn't have any money left. Remember, we had a $1.3 billion shortfall because they spent all the money. They didn't have any carry forward money. So, yeah, thanks for getting my blood pressure up right away in the morning.
So before we get off the budget, there was an announcement yesterday about Axon. The legislature voted to make sure that the Axon campus development could happen. Not that they gave them money or anything for it, but it was sort of an enabling move that the legislature was forced into because of some narrow opposition to the whole thing. Then we hear yesterday, Mayor Borowski of Scottsdale says, well, it looks as though, that deal is over. There might be an opportunity to negotiate later on, but we understand by other news reports, they're in conversations with Texas and Florida. They may have always been in conversations with them because they weren't sure what was going to happen in Scottsdale. I think it's 20,000 employees of that company, them leaving this state.
$55 billion company. No, they're going to stay. I don't know who was on and shared that type of information. Rick Smith, the founder of Axon, was quoted, and my sources tell me the same. They just got sick.
Well, the chief operating officer of the company said they're leaving yesterday.
Yeah, and they said we're done talking to trying to work out something with Scottsdale. We're moving forward with the plan that was passed by the legislature. So they are waiting for. You have to wait for sine die because in Arizona you have 90 days after sine die to contest the bill. So that's why sine die is important to get it done and over with. So sometime in September, if that's 90 days, then sometime in September it'll be law, and they'll start digging.
So Axon, formerly Taser.
Right.
Yes,
Okay, so why do you say they're staying?
because Rick Smith said they were going to stay.
Okay.
Rick Smith said they were going to stay. Now, where would they go? Governor Abbott would love to have them.
Sure.
And I was asked, one of the members put out from the House that was against the Axon bill, put out, well, tell me the state and the city that they're going to go to. And somebody else responded, here's the Governor Abbott quote, we'll have you there. Rick Smith, Axon could pick out wherever they want to go. All they have to say, we'd like to go to Austin, we'd like to go to wherever, and they'll roll out the red carpet all the way from Scottsdale to Texas. It's really disturbing. And right along that same, we still have to pass, before we go sine die, before we adjourn, we still have to approve the extension of the Diamondbacks.
Right. Oh, that's another big one. That's
Forgot about that one.
So Eb and I, in our pre-interview meeting, talked with you briefly, wanted to hear about Katie Hobbs and the CCP and her vetoing of a bill that allows, that would restrict communist controlled entities who are buying land in certain very sensitive locations. Talk about that.
The pushback must have been horrendous. Because
you think?
Because Monday was the 10th, right?
Right.
Yeah, Monday the 10th, she came out with a press release, and she's offering a different bill that does basically the same thing. And she said, pass this bill and put it on my desk, and I'll sign it. So I'm thinking that she just got hammered on that, which she should have.
But what was she thinking to begin with? I mean, she gave some lame reason last week.
Oh, she said it doesn't protect the military, and there's no method for setting it up. Her bill, and I haven't seen the bill, I've seen the makings of language, but it basically does the same thing. She basically took the majority leader, Janae Shamp, she basically took her language, plopped it in hers, and said, pass this and bring it out. Now, that doesn't even go to the fact that you have to get late introduction. I don't know if she's got the votes for that. Secondarily, there is a rumor, and it's a rumor. I don't know about this. There is a rumor that they might want to override her veto. I don't think we have the votes for that. I don't know how deep that feeling goes in the House and the Senate. You need a lot more people than what we have in a majority.
Let me tell you a story that my wife related to me just the other day. So we live in Coronado during the summers. My wife's there all the time. I'm there on weekends. Big military base, both the SEALs as well as naval aviation, right? And there had been a nail shop in that town run by Vietnamese, and every employee there was Vietnamese. All of a sudden, everybody in that nail shop, including the owner, are Chinese. And there are many military women as well as military wives who get their nails done. I mean, that's a big deal today. I kind of don't see the merit in it, but there are. And my wife says, I overheard them asking their customers, these Chinese women, oh, what do you like about Coronado? Where's your husband? Unbelievable kinds of questions being asked.
They're all spies.
I'm telling you,
every one of them.
This is an insidious sort of a situation, and that's just a microscopic sort of a view. I mean, I walk out from our house. We overlook the bay, and there's a little park just a few steps from our house, and I see young, military age men taking pictures of the aircraft carriers that are under renovation. The Nimitz was there, the Theodore Roosevelt was there, and constantly taking pictures in that area.
Openly.
Well,
nobody asks them a question. Nobody says, "Hey,
that's another thing that has just grown over the years, where we seemingly don't care. It goes back to it's almost like the Oprah budget. I made my money. Somebody else can take care of that. Hopefully, the guy in the Oval Office right now will grab a hold of that situation also, and fix it. The unfortunate thing is that, and I think he is with tariff. I don't know. They're meeting on tariffs. I don't know what the latest.
The president
is.
said this morning in a True Social message that the deal with the Chinese government has been made on tariffs, but I haven't heard any. I haven't
heard the detail. I didn't have anything on this morning. Well, she backwatered. She's got a staff, I think, that's divided, and I've heard that it's divided. Her letter or her introduction of her bill called Janae Shamp's bill, not worthy of even thought, and that Janae Shamp was spineless. You don't call a legislator spineless. You just don't do that. I mean, I don't see how that's going to, particularly in budget time. And then she wants us to pass a bill for her and get it up so she can pass it, so she can pat herself in the back.
So did I understand you before saying that she basically took Shamp's prior bill and has now plopped it back in?
Yeah.
It's the same
She's
exact
changed
bill?
some of the language at the top at the beginning of the bill. That's the article that I wrote. that came from Howie Fisher. I don't know if you know Howie, but anyway, yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know where this is all going to go. I don't know if there's a censure going to be involved at the very least.
I mean, I know there was some talk about that, at least amongst pundits, that maybe there should be a censure of her for doing that.
Yeah, but we've been apart. We should be there. We should not be in recess.
So who decides who's going on recess?
Well, the president and the speaker. We have two problems. First of all, nobody.
You're 19 days away.
Nobody worked on the budget in earnest until after all the bills. Basically, there were basically no bills to pass anymore to hear on the floor, except bills that are money bills that are connected to the budget. So there's nothing there. The other problem we have, so might as well send people home if there's nothing to do because they'll just get mad about having to come in. So that's one thought. The other thought is when you sign up to be a legislator, you basically say to your constituents, I think I'm going to be here for the meetings,
right,
the floor meetings, committee meetings, short of sickness, illness, or some emergency that I have to take care of. We have people right now in the Senate that are on vacation. We have a person. We have a person in the House that's leaving on vacation for Italy. December.
I hope that's not a Republican. If it's a Democrat, who cares?
It's a Republican. It's
oh,
a
my
Republican.
God.
And the majority leader is on vacation. And we have other people. Even when I was there, we had a person on the Appropriations Committee tell us, she said, I just made reservations to go to Norway this summer, and this is when I'm going to go. We said that's right during budget negotiations. She said, "Well, I made these reservations, and I'm not going to cancel."
Did this person forget that he or she had been elected to vote
getting paid?
The only important bill that has to get done
is pass a budget.
Is a budget.
Yeah.
Why the hell would anybody want to travel abroad?
And then we got people to take other little vacations. I was asked in the middle of May for my availability through May and June, and I asked for the day off after Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Otherwise, my job is to be here. My job is to be. If I'm not on a district, I should be. I should be at the Capitol doing people's work.
Are members being communicated with by leadership or by their staff with respect to what's transpiring, or do you just show up on next Monday or whatever the hell it is, and they say to you, "This is what's going on. You need to vote by the 25th."
No, nobody is coming down and on the Senate side. I can't speak for the House. And the House is a little bit tougher because it's wild and woolly. It's the Wild West in the House. In the Senate, I doubt that we're going to be told that because we have three different groups in the Senate. We have we have people like me that have been there. Dave Gowan, for example, has been there for a while. Kavanaugh has been there for a while.
Griffin. Griffin's in the other house.
Yeah,
sorry.
There's people that have been there for a while and have gone through the process and know the importance of the process. Then you have the Freedom Caucus, which votes against. I think our one Freedom Caucus member has voted 90% no against Republican bills. And then you have two or three new people that say, "What the hell am I doing here? Who's my friend?" So you have all these different groups going different ways.
Who's the Republican in the Senate who's voted against 80% of the bills?
Mr. Hoffman.
And Mr. Hoffman's running for Congress, I think?
He's not declared yet, but he has announced that Kimberly Yee is going to run against Horn.
Right.
And that surprised me.
That is surprising.
That Kimberly is going to go under the Turning Point's win. And then he just announced Monday that he has two members of the House that are going to challenge the sitting members on the Corpcom, like Ralph Heap and I can't think of the other gentleman's name. Freedom Caucus people that are going to run against sitting members and successful sitting members in the Corporation Commission.
So this is a little like the Westminster Hour on BBC. We've got a lot of topics in a very short period of time. 5 minutes before we need to sign off here today. Talk about the headline that I saw in the Star where Chris Mays isn't going to put up any resistance on the 139 court cases.
Yeah,
the Prop 139.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention because I didn't see that. It got past me. But I'll tell you what. In fact,
give us the emis.
So what it is she believes that there's a window within Prop 139 that you can do things like for the life of the mother. And there's one other that I'd have to look at my notes to see what it is. There's a couple of things. She believes that the things that are being offered right now are unconstitutional to begin with, and she doesn't want to spend the time or the energy defending it because she believes that what's being offered is not going to stand the test of the courts on Prop 139. It's convoluted. It's upside down. I didn't call Howie. Howie wrote the article. I didn't call Howie because I didn't have 2 hours to go through the explanation. Sure. But basically, I think the headline that you read didn't reflect what was in the article. If you read, I didn't read the Star article. I read another article from KJazz up there, and they put out there's two paragraphs in there that explain what's allowable under Prop 139, and that's she's going to let the issue run through the courts rather than her investing time. That's my belief. I'm not an attorney, and so my reading of the article would say she's just not going to waste time on it.
Wow. Incredible. Is there any good news to report? Good and welfare, as they say?
Yeah, there is good news. It doesn't really apply to kind of southern Arizona, but not very much south. Highway 347 in Maricopa, which is an absolute death trap.
Yeah.
The worst highway for accidents and deaths in the state is going to get money in the budget so we can fix it.
Enough money along with Fed money? Or
along with Fed money and along with the city of Maricopa has put money into it so they'll be able to make that 4-lane going back and forth. That is the conduit. I mean, housing in Pinal County and in Maricopa is much cheaper than Chandler.
Sure.
And so that's the conduit. Most people, and there really are no good jobs. There is no business in the city of Maricopa.
It's sort of a bedroom community.
It is a bedroom community. In fact, the school district Kyrene, which is a very good school district compared to a lot of others, would run buses down there and pick up kids. And they could make money on that because they were getting transportation costs, and what they didn't get in transportation costs, they picked up because of having more seats, more fannies in the seats at school.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting world.
Guys, I think we're up on it. Anything else you want to add here, Ed?
No, I'm just,
you guys are just so happy. I just made your day, right? With
oh boy.
Everything's going on.
Vince, thanks for everything.
Follow it close next week
All
because we have, I just looked, and I know you want to get off here. You're going to sign off and thank your advertisers. 19 days until
that's it.
19 days, and on the 22nd, we're going to lose a key member of the House. Otherwise, it's all good.
Insiders, that's going to do it for us today. Check our Facebook and X pages for the latest news and our views on the news. All of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live the Dream Media and Facebook. Thanks for joining us today. Until next Wednesday when we return, this is Eb Wilkinson and
Bruce Ash.
Wishing you a very good rest of your morning. Be sure to join us again in 167 hours.